The blueprint says 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 640 square feet. That's it. That's the whole house. But when the new owner ran a tape measure from the outside wall to the inside wall of the bedroom closet, the numbers didn't match. For feet were missing. Not, maybe I measured wrong missing. Not, old houses settle missing. For feet of space, completely unaccounted for, sealed somewhere inside a home that was supposed to be simple enough to fit on a single sheet of paper. And when they finally cut into that wall, what they found wasn't a design mistake. It was a room, framed, wired, and finished, that never once appeared on a single page of the official plans. If you've ever watched one of these hidden room stories and thought, there's no way that's real, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the actual documented cases this is built on, the real reason tiny houses are the easiest homes in America to hide a room in, and exactly how you can check your own house for the same thing. Before we get into it, hit subscribe now, because I'm about to walk you through this discovery in the exact order it happened, piece by piece, and the final reveal at the end of this video is the part almost nobody sees coming. If you subscribe now, you won't miss it. Alright, let's go back to the beginning. Here's the thing most people get wrong about tiny houses. They assume that because the home is small, it's simple. Fewer walls, fewer rooms, fewer places to hide anything. It's actually the opposite. Tiny houses, especially the ones built on trailers or as accessory dwelling units, exist in a strange legal gray zone. A lot of them are classified as recreational vehicles rather than permanent structures, which means in many states they never go through the same permitting and inspection process as a full-size home. No county inspector walks through with a copy of the blueprint checking that every wall matches the paper. That single fact changes everything. In a normal house, your blueprint gets filed with the local building department. An inspector signs off at multiple stages of construction, and the final plans are a matter of public record. If a contractor tried to build a hidden internal room, someone along that chain would likely catch it, because inspectors are specifically trained to compare wall placement to the stamped drawings. Tiny homes frequently skip that entire process. According to reporting from tiny house builders and industry groups over the past 2 years, a large share of tiny homes on wheels are self-certified or built by small independent contractors who are not required to submit to full residential inspection in the way a stick-built house is. That means the blueprint a buyer receives is sometimes closer to a sales drawing than a legally verified document. So when someone tells you the room isn't on the blueprint, the more accurate, and honestly creepier, version of that sentence is, nobody was checking. And builders know this. Several custom home and tiny home companies have actually leaned into it, advertising hidden rooms, secret storage, and concealed spaces as premium features. Design-build firms specializing in custom homes have published entire lookbooks in the last year, showing off bookshelf doors, fireplace walls that slide open, and rooms tucked behind ordinary-looking closets, sold not as something sinister, but as clever use of space. Which means the idea of a room that doesn't exist on paper isn't some horror movie invention. It's an actual, marketed feature of the custom and tiny home industry in 2026. The unsettling part is what happens when a buyer finds one of these spaces that nobody told them about. This is where our story actually begins. A buyer purchases a tiny house, small footprint, efficient layout, the kind of home that's supposed to be easy to understand in a single afternoon. Everything checks out on the walkthrough. The blueprint is included in the sale documents, stamped, official-looking, 640 square feet, 1 bedroom. Weeks later, they're doing something completely ordinary. Installing shelving in the bedroom closet. Standard home improvement. The kind of task that happens in houses every single day and rarely turns into anything interesting. Except the drill goes in, and it doesn't hit what it should. Instead of open wall cavity, there's resistance almost immediately. The telltale sign of something solid packed and tighter than a typical stud wall should allow. Curious, not alarmed yet, they grab a tape measure and do what any reasonably observant person would do. Measure the closet from the inside, then walk outside and measure the same wall from the exterior. The math doesn't work. The exterior wall position says the closet should extend roughly 4 feet further than it does on the inside. 4 feet of depth that exists on the outside of the house, but isn't accessible from within it. This exact scenario, interior dimensions failing to match exterior wall placement, is actually one of the most common real-world tells that inspectors and contractors point to when they explain how hidden rooms get discovered. It's not usually a hidden door with a skull carved into it. It's someone with a tape measure noticing that a house is, quite simply, larger on the outside than it is on the inside. This mirrors real documented cases. A licensed home inspector in the past year described finding a completely sealed room above a garage that even the homeowner had no idea existed, something he called one of the best preserved discoveries of his entire 10-year inspection career. In another case reported just last year, a couple renovating their home learned from their own architect, mid-project, that a bricked-up space existed in the structure that wasn't part of any plan they'd been given. They didn't find it. A professional had to tell them. So when our tiny house owner realizes the numbers don't add up, they're not experiencing something rare and cinematic. They're experiencing something that happens to real homeowners, in real houses, often enough that the room that isn't on the blueprint has become its own recognizable category of home renovation story. Here's where most videos like this one either get lazy or get it wrong. So let's slow down and go through it properly. Cutting into a wall you suspect is hiding a room isn't something you just do with a hammer and enthusiasm. Anyone attempting this in real life should shut off power to that section of the house first, because wiring inside a wall cavity you can't see is one of the leading causes of injury during exactly this kind of exploratory demolition. If there's any doubt about whether a wall is load-bearing, that's a question for a contractor, not a guess. In our story, a small section of drywall is removed near the base of the closet, low enough to avoid any electrical runs, small enough to patch easily if it turns out to be nothing. Behind it, not insulation, not framing, a void, a cavity roughly 4 feet deep, running the width of the closet, with what appears to be a second layer of framing further back, meaning this wasn't a gap left by accident during construction. Accidental gaps in framing don't get their own interior wall. This space had been deliberately built and deliberately closed off. At this point, in the real cases this kind of story is based on, homeowners typically do one of two things. They either keep going immediately, driven by the same curiosity that got them this far, or they stop and bring in a professional, a contractor, an inspector, sometimes even a structural engineer if there's any concern about what removing more material might do to the house. For a story, they call someone in. And this is the part where the discovery moves from weird to something with actual answers. When the wall comes down properly, the space reveals itself as a fully framed room. Not a crawl space, not leftover construction gap, but a small, deliberately built room roughly 4 feet by 6 feet, tall enough to stand in, with electrical wiring already run to a single outlet and an overhead junction box with no fixture attached. No furniture, no secret documents, no dramatic time capsule, just an empty, wired, unfinished room, sealed shut, that was never mentioned anywhere in the paperwork. This is actually consistent with something real contractors and builders describe fairly often, and it's a lot less mysterious, and honestly a lot more interesting than most people expect. In real documented cases, families have found entire unfinished sections of a home walled off, complete with installed lighting, and even markings on the studs indicating where a bathroom was originally planned, work that was simply never completed, and then sealed behind drywall rather than left visibly unfinished. There are a few genuinely common explanations for this, and they apply just as much to tiny homes as they do to full-size ones. Change orders that got sealed instead of removed. Sometimes a builder frames out a room. The buyer changes their mind mid-construction to save money or square footage for permitting purposes, and rather than tear the framing back out, the crew just closes it up. It's faster and cheaper to hide unfinished work than to undo it. Permitting math. This one is specific to tiny houses. Many jurisdictions cap the legal square footage for a structure to qualify as an accessory dwelling unit, a granny flat, or a non-permitted mobile structure. If a builder frames a house slightly larger than the legal limit and then closes off the extra footage, the home can be sold as compliant with the smaller number, while physically containing more space than the paperwork admits. The blueprint isn't wrong by accident. It's wrong by design, to make the numbers work for a permit or a loophole. Structural cavities that got reused. Sometimes a space starts as something mundane, a mechanical chase for plumbing or ductwork, and later gets closed in permanently once the original systems were rerouted, without anyone updating the drawings to reflect it. For our story, it turns out to be the second one. The builder had framed the tiny house at just over the size limit for the exemption category it was being sold under. Closing off 4 feet of depth in that closet wall brought the official livable footprint back under the threshold. On paper, the room was real. The blueprint was the fiction. Here's why this story actually matters beyond just being a strange discovery. If you buy a tiny house or any structure sold as an accessory dwelling unit, and the actual footprint differs from what's on file with your local permitting office, that's not just an oddity. It can directly affect your insurance coverage, your property tax assessment, and your ability to legally sell or modify the structure later. Insurance policies are underwritten against the declared specifications of a structure. A hidden, unpermitted room can, in some cases, void coverage for that portion of the home entirely if something goes wrong in a space the insurer never knew existed. This is the detail that separates this story from just being a spooky internet clip. The blueprint isn't just a drawing. It's a legal document that your taxes, your insurance, and your resale value are all built on top of. When it doesn't match the physical structure, that mismatch doesn't go away just because the wall is closed. It just waits. If any part of this made you want to grab a tape measure, here's the actual, responsible way real inspectors recommend checking for this kind of discrepancy. No demolition required. First, measure your home's total exterior footprint, all 4 sides, and calculate the approximate square footage. Then walk the interior, room by room, and add up the total interior square footage, accounting for wall thickness of roughly 4 to 6 inches per wall. Compare that number to the total on your blueprint or your county's assessor records, which in most areas are publicly available online for free. Second, look for what inspectors call orphaned features, a vent that doesn't seem to lead anywhere, a light switch with nothing connected to it, an electrical outlet on an exterior-facing wall inside a closet with no visible reason for its placement. These small, easy-to-miss details are consistently what leads to real hidden room discoveries, far more often than a dramatic hidden door. Third, and honestly the most reliable method, pull your permit history from your local building department. Every completed inspection, every approved addition, every stamped drawing tied to your address is typically part of the public record. If there's a discrepancy between what's filed and what physically exists, that paperwork trail is where it will show up first, long before you ever need to touch a wall. And if you do find a genuine discrepancy, the right next step isn't a hammer. It's a licensed contractor or a structural engineer, someone who can safely assess what you're dealing with before anything gets opened up. So let's bring this back to where we started. A blueprint says one thing, a tape measure says another. For feet of unexplained space, sealed behind a closet wall, in a house small enough that you'd think there was nowhere left to hide anything. But that's exactly the point of this whole story. Tiny houses are marketed as simple, transparent, easy to understand at a glance. And it's precisely that reputation for simplicity that makes them one of the easiest structures to quietly build outside the lines of what's on paper. The room in our story wasn't a secret vault. It wasn't sinister. It was a builder gaming a permitting limit, and a homeowner who happened to be curious enough and careful enough to notice 4 feet that didn't add up. If you found this one interesting, this is exactly the kind of story I dig into on this channel. Real cases, real documentation, no exaggeration, just the parts of these discoveries that actually hold up when you look closer. Subscribe if you want the next one, because the next hidden room case I'm covering involves an entire second staircase that 3 different owners lived with for over a decade without ever finding. Thanks for watching all the way through. I'll see you in the next one.